This video is playing devil's advocate. The Mac Studio is poised to be one of Apple's most ambitious projects yet. Is it something for prosumers? Is it something for consumers? Or is it something specifically for professionals? What tier does it go into? Well, we're gonna find out when people start seeing this in the market and start testing it out to see exactly who this is made for. Is it made for you, the content professional? Or is it made for you, the person who just wants a regular computer to do regular tasks? Well, in this video, I'm gonna be talking to you about the top 5 reasons why you should not be investing in the new Mac Studio. Hello everyone, my name is Amir and welcome to Arc Overload. Now before you spam the comments below with hate messages of how I'm an Apple hater, I'm actually not. I'm quite excited about this product. In fact, I made another video about the top 5 reasons why you should be getting the Mac Studio. But this video is playing devil's advocate. It's looking at who really needs this machine, who really needs to spend the money to get the power that this machine is promising, and what audience is Apple trying to cater towards. So I encourage you to stay tuned and hear what I have to say, and then you can make your own decision as to whether or not it's for you or not. So let's get started on why you should avoid the Mac Studio. Reason number 5 is that if you've already purchased an M1 machine in the last year and a half that they've been releasing them, then you probably don't need the Mac Studio. Is it nice to have all that power? Yes. Is it cool to have that brand new design and the SD card in the front? Absolutely. Do you need it? I would argue otherwise. The M1 Mac Mini that I have with its 8-core CPU and 8-core GPU and only 16 gigabytes of unified memory is a beast of a machine. I've edited 4K video on there like it's nothing. I've edited red video on there off of a solid state drive like it's nothing. I've recorded songs and albums with 90 plus tracks like it's absolutely nothing. The machine doesn't blink. The only time I've ever made it sweat was I was editing a video in Premiere that had 3 4K cameras, 2 Sony FS7s and 1 Panasonic that were all shot on green screen that had to be keyed with different backgrounds and various motions and titles and all that kind of stuff. And when I was exporting that video, editing it was no problem. When I was exporting that video, it would tell me that it would run out of memory, but it still went ahead and exported the video anyways. That's the only time I've ever seen that message pop up on the M1 Mac Mini. Other than that, it kicks ass. And I would argue whoever is not doing video intensive stuff like that does not need the Mac Studio. Is it nice to have? Absolutely. Are you future-proofing yourself for the next 7, 8, 10 years? I would argue yes. But if you currently have an M1 based machine, I think you're good for the next 3 to 5 years. And who knows what Mac Studio will look like 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now. It might be and probably will be infinitely better than what it is right now. So maybe it's better to wait than to just jump in and get the first version that they have out there. The next reason why you should avoid the Mac Mini is I'm a little concerned about the M1 Ultra, its processing power, and how exactly they're gonna keep everything cool. Now they did show in the demos that they're gonna have these 2 big fans in the machine, and that's really the bulk of the height of the machine of the 3.7 inches that's going to cool all of this down. And even in the presentation, they said you'll barely hear anything depending on the task. And that concerns me a little bit, only because the M1 Mac Mini that I have and the M1 Max MacBook Pro that I have not heard the fans kick in once. And I'm talking full-on multi-camera 4K video edits. I'm talking full-on Logic Pro sessions with plugins galore, mastering plugins and everything. And I have not heard the fans kick in once. So when they have already admitted hey, you're gonna hear the fans a little bit. How much are we gonna hear the fans? We have gotten spoiled ever since the M1 chips have come out because we don't hear the fans anymore. We don't hear the rocket ships blasting off as the old Intel-based MacBook Pros used to sound like. My old iMac used to sound like. My iMac used to the 5K Retina, those fans used to just spin when I was doing intensive stuff, when I was recording in Logic or when I was editing in something in Final Cut Pro and then I needed to run it through compressor or export it. Like those fans all of a sudden announced their presence to the world, to my studio as I was working. I have gotten used to a quiet computing space, to a quiet creative space, thanks to the efficiency of the M1 chips. Now, if they're creating an M1 Ultra chip that is going to be so powerful that it requires those 2 big fans that's gonna take up the bulk of that 3.7 inches and it's gonna make noise, my question is, how much noise? If you could help me out, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, here on the Arc Overload channel. It would mean a lot to me if you could help me on my journey to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark just by hitting the subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you can get notified of the next video that I put out here on this platform. And if you will, like this video as well to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. The next reason is that that's a lot of power for a lot of money. Now, the $19.99 entry price to me is the sweet spot. If that's where you go in for the Mac Studio, by all means, go ahead and do so. I think you're making a great decision. Now, who cares what I think? But nonetheless, if you think that you're making a great decision, then by all means, go for it. But if you're gonna drop $8,000 for 128 gigs of unified memory that I would argue that you're probably not gonna use, and 64 core GPU that I would again argue that you're not gonna use, at least at home, doing what you're doing, whatever it is that you are doing. If you are, I don't know, mining Bitcoin, I'm kidding. But if you are like creating multi-layered motion graphics, or if you're coding hardcore video games, okay, you'll probably need 64 gigs of GPU, and you'll probably need 128 gigabytes of unified memory. But I would also argue that the company that you work for that's doing that is paying for your machine and not you. You're not dropping $8,000, your company's dropping $8,000, or the person who's hiring you to do that job is dropping $8,000. You're not dropping $8,000 to do that. But if you're paying $8,000 for yourself to have in your creative space at home, it's hard for me to fathom that idea that you would need that much computing power. Do you want that much computing power? Hell yes, who the hell doesn't? Do I want to drop $8,000 for that much computing power? Absolutely not. And I would argue that you could achieve similar results, maybe not as fast, maybe 30 seconds slower, maybe a minute slower tops, if you go 32 core GPU, or if you go 24 core GPU versus 64 core GPU and 128 gigabytes of unified memory. That's just me. By all means, more power equals good. I understand that. And with all the graphs that Apple showed with this amount of efficiency and all that kind of stuff, I get it. But is it worth $8,000? To me, the answer is no. The next reason is just a hunch, but I get a feeling that Apple's not going to maintain this design for very long. There's just something weird to me about the fact that the front of the machine is literally an SD slot and 2 USB-C ports or 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, depending on which configuration you get. This design to me is not finished. This design to me is very much the first reiteration of this design, and I can see them going in a sleek, futuristic design in the future. Something that's gonna have maybe multiple colors, something that's gonna have even more ports and more ability for you to customize your setup in the future. This being the first iteration of this makes me think that this isn't 100% the direction that they're going to go in for the long term. I could be completely wrong. This is just a hunch that I have, but knowing that this company loves to go back and change little things, like getting rid of the 21-inch iMacs and replacing them with 7 different colored 24-inch iMacs that have the M1. This company consistently likes to update and innovate, and something tells me that this Mac Studio, that this design is gonna change by the time we get to the next iteration. This is just a hunch that I have. It's a strong hunch though. And the number one reason why you shouldn't get the Mac Studio is pretty simple. This machine, very specifically, I think was made for creators. The SD card slot in the front screams to me that this machine was specifically made for creators. And if that's not you, if you're someone who you go on Canva to create all your stuff, which by the way, there's nothing wrong with Canva, and I plan on making a video on Canva in the future, but you create your stuff in Canva, or you edit your stuff using iMovie, or you use photos to edit all your photography, you don't use Lightroom or anything like that, the Mac Studio is overkill for you. I'm just gonna straight up say it. It's 100% overkill for you. You're better off getting a 24-inch iMac. But again, if you want the latest and greatest, then to me, the sweet spot is that $19.99 entry point. You don't have to go any further than that. Stick with that entry point and see where it takes you in 3, 4, 5 years. In 5 years from now, if the machine is outdated and there's something way better out there, then by all means, that's the direction that you go in. But right now, if you're not someone who absolutely needs all that computing power, and if you're not a creative professional who's creating content all day, every day, then I would say that no, you don't need it. You can be perfectly happy with that $2,000 investment for the base Mac Studio, and I think that's where you stay at. Anything other than that is absolute overkill, and you definitely don't need it. But you know what, folks? That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on the Mac Studio, and do you plan on getting one? And if you want a completely different perspective, check out my video right here on the top 5 reasons why you should be getting the Mac Studio. Once again, my name is Amir. This is Arc Overload. Hit that subscribe button to help me get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.